that dance. What do you call that dance? MC Hammer? Oh, camera, always. Take a picture. Just do a little bit of dancing. Yeah. Keep your toes nice and warm. You guys were really great listeners today. You guys asked really good questions and knew a lot of really good answers. So, before you guys leave, do you have any other questions?
How long before you can start using it in your garden?
It's going to be until about a few months. They don't know exactly, so it's about 3 to 4 months-ish. So basically, you know how we showed you the bucket of like the dirt. Once it gets to like actual like the dirt texture, then and not just like pieces that are turning brown, then you know you can use it in your garden and that it won't cause any problems. Okay. So, all right. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah, I it up right here.
Are you taping?
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
No name. Yes, it is.
Good morning.
Thank you. My name is Montre, and this is Megan.
Hi,
and that's
everybody.
Elijah with the camera.
Hi, everybody. So in this station, we're going to talk a little bit about how beautiful gardening is, and you're going to get a chance to learn about some careers in gardening. And we're going to have a speaker, but she's not here yet, so I'm going to go ahead and explain your project to you. You're going to get a chance to be a landscaper today. So this is what I came up with. This is kind of along the lines of the project that you will be doing today. You're going to cut out pictures from the magazines in front of you. You can use markers, you can use glue, you can use the rubber bands, you can use whatever you want, and you're going to create your dream garden. So I'm going to pass out paper, and you all can get started on that.
Okay.
Look how big my name is.
Hey.
Is that a video again?
No.
Here, baby Rai. Hey, thanks, man.
No.
You guys, it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
I've been singing that all day. And veggies? Any veggies? Anybody? Veggie planters? Veggie planters! High five! High five! Awesome! Great. Okay. So what we're gonna plant? Your classmates just planted us some nice carrots and lettuce. So we are gonna work on some radishes. And who has ever had a radish? Anybody?
No.
You guys like radishes?
No.
Yeah, radishes are great, huh?
I've seen them, but
well, they are so good. I've had radish ice cream before. That's not so good.
I'm not sure I can't tell the difference between radishes and
Radishes, that is kind of hard to tell the difference. We've got a picture on the packet, so we can look at that if you guys want. And if you guys have never had a radish, this will be great because when these grow, you guys can come back and try them, and you can see if you like them at first. They taste a little different if you've never had one, but it takes about like 10 or 15 times to try it. And then once you have it like that much time, you love it by then.
All right. Now you guys take a seed each, and you're going to put a seed in the hole.
I love eating sunflower seeds.
You'll be able to eat these eventually once they grow into big sunflowers.
yeah, we're supposed to stuff my hand straight.
Can we get another?
You can take as many as you want. We're filling up this entire tray.
Now that we put it over,
Nope, not yet. First we're gonna put all the seeds in before we cover them over, just so we remember where they are.
what happens if you put
They're good.
2 in one?
sustainability ultimately is biodiversity. And what that means is that there's constantly, you know, an ecosystem or a landscape or whatever you want to call it, a greenscape that is the landscape with which we all interact, is very dynamic. There's constantly things dying and growing and lots of death and life and all that stuff is happening all the time. But what sort of makes it work ultimately is that there's lots and lots and lots of diversity in the system. There's lots of different kinds of trees, there's lots of different kinds of animals, and ultimately there's lots of different kinds of bugs. And bugs in the soil are what make everything ultimately strong and healthy. And so, from a landscape perspective and on a farm level, what we try to do in this particular region is to create a mixture of ecologists tell us the best thing for wildlife is a mixture of field and forest. And so what you want, that edge effect is what ultimately builds, it gives wildlife habitats, it gives the birds can sit in the trees and look for the field mice out in the field. There's very much a symbiotic relationship environmentally and ecologically between the field and the forest. And so what you want is a mixture of those two things. And so what we try to do on this farm is to maintain that balance that we have. And the best way to maintain the forest land ecosystem is to kind of let it go. You know, you cut some timber, you cut firewood, you manage it, but you don't clear it. But the way to maintain the pasture land ecosystem is the way that nature's always maintained it, and that's with a grazing herbivore. And so whenever you're talking about taking grass, which is something that humans can't eat, and which is something that is a great part of our environment, which is the prairie, basically the prairie ecosystem, and you're taking that ecosystem and you're taking an animal that can harvest that grass, which is a cow, and you're taking that animal and then you're harvesting that animal as grass-fed beef, you're talking about a 100% sustainable conversion from sunlight and water to grass to meat and an animal. Sort of the industrial approach to agriculture and to everything else has been to sort of isolate it and then solve anything that attacks it. So what you have is you have thousands of acres of corn grown in this country, which is what we call monoculture, where there's only one thing growing there and that's it. And if that's the case, you know, that ecosystem is ultimately pretty unhealthy because there's so little biodiversity in that ecosystem. And so you're going to have, from an ecological standpoint, lots of animals coming in and attacking it, you know, just because nature doesn't totally like monoculture. And so, you know, when you have that system in place, you have to, you know, use lots of chemicals, fertilizers to keep that system and maintain it as a system. And so what we've done in this country is created an agricultural system based on these monocultures. That does work because we have lots of fossil fuel inputs that we can put in there to maintain that current system. Now we all know that eventually we're going to run out of fossil fuels and that we're sort of on this march towards a lower input system. So what we try to do here is do a much lower input and let the landscape manage itself. I mean, we work hard in it, but you ultimately don't have a lot of input into the system that are required to keep the system going. Biodiversity is really the crux of what organic agriculture is all about, and ultimately in your soils, because that's where everything happens. And we want as much life and biological activity in our soils as possible. So that's what we try to promote.